Alright guys, for this tutorial I'm going to be showing you my stone wrapping technique. It's very useful to make any kind of bracelet, necklace, whatever, what have you, with cabochons. It's very simple and easy once you learn it, so let's get started. You want to start with 3 cords, 2 short holding cords, and 1 longer working cord. Doesn't matter which side the working cord is on, whichever side you prefer. Pins are very, very helpful in this instance. We are going to use them to make a space that is the size of the cabochon, just a little bit bigger. We take our cabochon and just make sure you have a little bit of wiggle room in between the pins, because you don't want to make the wrap too tight. You don't want to make it too loose. You want to make it fit just right. And as you start wrapping, you will end up tightening the wrap just a little tiny bit, so you do need a little bit of wiggle room. And then we start just by, we take our working cord, we just start crisscrossing with lark's head knots. And we go up to the pin. Just like that. And then you do the same thing on the other side. Go over, under, over, and then under, over, under. And now to help with even spacing, I pull on the working cord and the holding cord together, so that way the knots come out even and my spaces are consistent. So you just keep doing that, just crisscross over, back and forth. Now you don't want the knots completely next to each other, but you don't want the knots too far away from each other either. Well, it actually all depends on what kind of style you're going for, but if you want to attach cords to it later on, you don't want the knots to be too far away from each other, or else you're going to have too big of a space to actually connect all your cords. So you just want to keep crisscrossing back and forth. And pull tight so your knots are even. Over, under, over, under, over, under. And then same thing on the other side. I have to be honest with you, stone wrapping is not my favorite thing. I find it to be kind of a pain in the butt, but it gives you endless possibilities of what you can do. All you need to learn is the simple technique, but also it's not as easy. It's a little difficult to get the hang of because you have to keep the even spacing, so learning how to keep the spacing is definitely a process. It took me over a year to learn how to be able to wrap cabochons the way that I do now. So don't get discouraged if you can't figure it out in the first, second, third, fourth try. You don't know how many times I've tried and failed at it, but trial and error is the best way to learn, right? And I hope that my video can help some of you guys nail this technique. And don't rush through it. Take your time. 'Cause, you know, if you rush through something, you have more chance of messing it up. But if you mess up, you could always go back and fix it later if you want. And it also helps you think about what you could have done differently, what you should have done differently. But take your time. Don't rush. And just continue putting pressure on each cord as you work, so that way you maintain even spacing throughout and your knots are always tight. So just keep going back and forth. about halfway down with my wrap. So what I'm going to do to test it out, I'm going to unpin it from my board and grab my stone and then just test it out. I still have a little ways to go, you see, but you see how it molds over the back just a little bit, goes over the front just a little bit, it fits nice and perfect, snug inside. And this is where I turn it around and I start working from the other side with my longer working cord. Now you don't necessarily have to do this, it's just the way that I prefer to do it. You can start on one side and stay on that one side as long as your working cord is long enough. You won't have a problem. And I also don't bother to use my T-pins anymore because I just find them to get in the way at this point. I already started my spacing so I can keep the evenness going. But I definitely suggest, if you're a beginner, to use your T-pins as much as you can, because it does help with consistency and helps keep things in line. And if you don't use T-pins, kudos to you, because I cannot live without them. You just continue doing the same thing that you did on the other side. Just crisscrossing back and forth. Yeah, my cord's a little bit slippery. Over, under, over, under, over, under. Over, under, over, under, over, under. It does help to say that in your head when you're learning, just to keep the pattern going. It's also called a lark's head knot. It's a very simple knot. It's very useful too. You can use it to attach cords to pieces along the way. You could use it to attach cords to a wall hanging of any sorts. It's a very handy knot to know. And you just keep going until you get down to your desired length. That'll fit around the stone. I still have a little ways to go. My stone's a little big. Now I'm using waxed polyester cord for this wrap, but this technique can be used with any kind of cord, any material of your choosing. I've done it with hemp plenty of times. That's actually the material that I used when I first learned. You can do it with cotton, polyester, nylon, anything. It's just all about your personal preference. And at this point, I'm going to unpin it from my board. I'm going to keep the working cords towards the back of the wrap. I'll show you that later when I go to finish the wrap. I just want to see where I'm at, how many more knots I need for it. See, I'm almost done with the wrap. I only need a couple more knots. So I'll put the stone aside. Pin it back down to the board. This way. Now you always want your working cord to end on the same side, on both sides. So from the view that I have, my working cord should end on the right side. It doesn't matter what side it's on, just you gotta make sure both of them are on the same side for the method that I'm showing you. Everybody has a different stone wrapping method. There's a couple different videos out there. Just thought I'd share my favorite method, one that I've grown to develop and find the most helpful. Alright, after this knot, I think I'll be at the length that I need. Like I said, keep the working cords in the back. Take your stone, line it up, and you want to make sure you do have a little space left up at the top for the knot to finish it off. So then that's what I'm going to show you now. So you leave the 4 cords towards the back. Don't worry about those yet. Take the 2 holding cords that you have up front and tie an overhand knot to secure it together. Pull it tight. Just like that. Push the stone in. Did the front knot, turn it over to the back, and you're going to do the same thing with the back 2 holding cords. So you just take those, overhand knot, tie it real tight. You see how it squeezed the wrap onto the stone? And just tie another overhand knot real tight. Okay, flip it back over. I'm just going to make sure that my front knot is as tight as it could be. Bring it together close. Alright, and then this is where I'm going to show you my tucking method. Alright, take the 2 holding cords from the front, flip your stone over, grab your threading needle. My threading needle is my best friend, along with my T-pins. You take the holding cord that's on the left, thread it through your needle, and then you want to thread it in the middle of the working cord and the holding cord knot. Just like that. Okay? And pull it nice and tight. And then what we're going to do is how we tied together the holding cords. We're going to tie these 2 cords together. The working cord and the holding cord that you just threaded through the back. So just do a simple overhand knot. You just tie it tight. Double knot it for security. Just like that. And then we're going to do the same thing with the holding cord on the right now. Separate these. Okay. Thread it through your needle. If mine will cooperate. Alright, and then put it in between the holding cord knots and the working cord. Do the back, just like that. Alright, pull it nice and tight. And then do the same thing you just did with the other cords. Tie the working cord and the holding cord together. Nice and tight. Alright, we'll flip it back over, you see? Now we have no cords left up front. It's just a nice stone in the wrap. So just flip it back over. Grab your handy dandy scissors and just cut off the cords. Now if you're using hemp, you might want to glue the frays to make sure it's secure. If you're using a wax cord like I am, you can use a lighter to burn the edges to melt them together for extra security. And it would make it cleaner too. And there you have it. Simple stone wrap. And now you can attach any cords that you want to make any kind of piece that you want. You have the freedom, endless possibilities. So take it and run with it. I hope it helps.